Welcome on into the Motorcar Marketplace Podcast. I am your host, as always, Mac Moore, and on today's episode, I have a very special car that I will be talking about. It is one that I actually saw recently at the Dallas Cars and Coffee in immaculate condition. It was actually painted in orange. If you go back to the Dallas Cars and Coffee gallery, I am sure that you will be able to see it, and that is the Porsche 912, and more specifically today I will be discussing a 1966 Porsche 912, excuse me there. But anyhow, before we actually get into this specific 912, let's go over the Porsche 912, the first generation, more exactly, to just get an idea of what this car was. And the first generation 912 came with a 1.6 liter Boxer 4 engine, had 90 horsepower, and actually got up to 30 miles per gallon, which was quite a feat back in the late 60s, and went 0 to 60 in a not so impressive 11 and a half seconds, or at least around that number, which really explains why this vehicle got 30 miles to the gallon. But anyhow, lovingly referred to as the poor man's 911, the Porsche 912 was Porsche's entry-level model and was introduced as an alternative to the more expensive 911 when it came out in 1965 in the European market, and then it actually came over to America starting in 1966. It was like a Porsche 911 in every way, though, except from the engine that was swapped for a more economical four-cylinder variant, unfortunately, but that's how you have to go in order to cut costs and make vehicles cheaper. More than 32,000 912s were built, making it a very successful car during its time, and this was during its first generation, of course, which was between April of 1965 and July of 1969. The 912 would return once more in 1975 and 1976, however, with the accordion bumpers that became mandated during that time period after the U.S. crash safety tests and all that. Being that the 912 is a lower power 911, though, the 912 of this era is appropriately priced as a reflection of that. As my former boss once said, you get 2/3 of a 911 for 1/3 the price when you purchase a 912. And for 1/3 this price, the timeless look that is achieved by a long hood Porsche, especially with the 912, is definitely worth it. Now, this 912 that I'm talking about specifically, or at least the one that inspired this podcast, is being auctioned off on Wednesday by RM Sotheby's in Paris, France, during the famed Retromobile week. It is being offered without reserve and has an estimate between $49,850 and $83,235. And the actual true estimate of that is actually in euros, because it's an auction in Paris, and that's between 40,000 euros and 70,000 euros as of today, which is February 3rd, 2018. Anyhow, with all that being said, it is being offered without reserve and is in perfect barn find condition with just over 31,000 miles on the odometer. It was originally bought on Christmas Eve by a woman in the Netherlands who wanted to give it to her husband as a fantastic Christmas gift in 1965, and what a lucky guy he was, because I would certainly love to have a new Porsche as my Christmas gift any year, man. Anyhow, this 912 was enjoyed thoroughly by that man for over 2 decades, the man who got it as his Christmas gift from his very loving wife, or at least I was hoping she was a very loving wife, not apologizing for something. The second owner, also a man from the Netherlands, bought this vehicle from the original owner in 1986. He cared for it. He actually did a preservation treatment on it in 1987, and then in 1988 he parked it and left it untouched to be forgotten, basically, with just 31,153 miles. This completely original 912 possesses some exquisite patina, as I'm sure you can imagine, and as the pictures show it, those pictures certainly do it justice. It looks beautiful in the photographs, and I'm sure even prettier in person, and it is completely ready for its next custodian, since it is a wonderful candidate for a mechanical restoration. This 912 is sure to excite its future owner as much as it excited its original owner on Christmas morning back in 1965. And what a special car it really is. It's truly beautiful. and is going to make just for a wonderful project for the next owner. Hopefully they turn it into a project and give it a good mechanical restoration. I wouldn't touch anything else. I'd just make sure it got running again and then enjoyed it as it was once enjoyed those many years ago. Now the pricing for 912s, like I said before, it is 2/3 of the 911 for 1/3 the price, and that is certainly reflected in the Haggerty pricing guide. As a Concours model goes for $74,000, an excellent 912 can be found for $45,900. A good 912 can be found for $33,000, and a fair condition 912 can be found for $21,000. And those all seem to be very, very just and fair price points for the 912. In fact, the cheapest 912 that I found, though, was one that was being offered for sale in, I think it was California, I could be wrong, but it was being offered for about 12 or 13 grand, which is, it was certainly a beater to say the least. There was no way it was running. It was rusty and all of that. But these 912s, if you want the look of a classic 911 without having to pay classic 911 money, the 912 is certainly a very good alternative if you are open to going down that path. And after checking the market, this pricing structure seems to be very accurate, quite accurate, and fair given the condition of the vehicles that are listed for sale online, specifically on Hemmings. And all goes back to say that saying of the 912 being 2/3 the 911 for 1/3 the money is certainly very, very true. I do believe that this 912, though, the one that is being offered for auction in Paris, is the most prized one on the market now and will receive a premium to reflect that. Even though it's not running and all that, I do think that this one will go for a lot. However, the most expensive 912 on Hemmings currently is at Gateway Classics in Dallas, and their vehicle is priced at $69,000, and I think it's a little overpriced, but that's just my personal opinion. Their vehicle may have a story that's just as special, and the car may really be in just genuinely perfect condition, but it didn't seem that way. At least to me, it didn't seem that way. And I think that this one, though, given the fact that it's not running, or at least despite that fact, that I think it will probably go for just a little bit more than 69 grand. However, I think it's just going to barely eclipse that number. My best guess for the estimate of this 912 with such a fascinating story is that it will fetch between 65 grand to 75 grand, with my exact price estimate or guess landing in at $71,000, and hopefully it gets that figure. I'd hate for the current owner of this not to receive the money that he is certainly owed for keeping this car for so long in such good condition, and in offering it up finally after it's had such an incredible story. Now, the next owner is going to have to, or at least the next owner is going to know they will have to put some money into this 912 to get it running again, and that is what I fear will scare off buyers from this car and will lead people from actually bidding on it and then causing it to sell at, below 40 grand, which would really just be a steal and a real shame. But the most important thing with cars like this is that they go off to better owners, or not better, but just owners who will really enjoy them and care for them and love them just as much as they once were. And I think that will be the case with this. Being offered at auction at such a very nice event, I do think that this 912 will go to a good home. And who knows, perhaps nobody will want to put work into this vehicle, and it goes for a very, very low number since it's offered without reserve. Hopefully, like I said before, that won't be the case. But regardless of what happens, the next owner will be very, very lucky that he or she is in possession of such a wonderful, wonderful automobile. And with all of that being said, I am going to put this episode of the Motorcar Marketplace Podcast into a conclusion. It has been a very long week for me. I've just started a job at a Ford dealership while also being a full-time student in college. So as you can imagine, my schedule's a bit hectic right now. I'm hoping that next week I can put in more time into the podcast and actually create a full-length 15-minute episode, but for today, just a 10-minute episode will suffice. With all of that being said, thank you so much for listening. Keep an eye out for my Paris auction preview that should come out later this week, and hopefully I'll be able to post up more than I have this prior week. like I said before, thank you so much for watching. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Motorcar Marketplace. If you are in the market to sell your vehicle, please seek Motorcar Marketplace as an option to sell your collector car. We would love to work with you and ensure that you get the proper amount for your collector car that you've cared for so greatly. Thank you so much. Please stay safe driving down the road, and until then, I'll see you later. Goodbye.